That's great. Well, it's good to be back, and as you probably know, I've been away on sabbatical for 3 months. I'm so thankful to be able to do that with my family. We drove across North America. We got into Canada a little bit, saw Niagara Falls, and we also spent a little time in Western Europe and Northern Africa. And it was just a trip of a lifetime. And so thank you. Great memories for me and my family. And I discovered a lot, and I noticed that people seem to be, there seemed to be a lot of fear and anxiety that people are living with, not just here, but everywhere. And a lot of it is valid, obviously. I mean, there's the environment, there's the environmental crisis, there's the economy, there's the state of democracy, there's the issue of human rights, and obviously the war in Ukraine and other places. So there's a lot to be anxious about, fearful about. People have got a lot going on in their personal lives. In the midst of all the big stuff, we all have our own stuff going on. And a lot of it, though, beyond what's real and valid, there's also all those other fears and concerns that get ginned up by the things that we're watching or listening to or surrounding ourselves with. Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield, he tells a story about a couple from snowy Minnesota who had made a plan to escape the winter cold by going to a Florida resort where they had their honeymoon 25 years earlier. Now, because of his wife's work schedule, she was delayed and he was going to go first. And when he arrived, he received a message at the front desk that said that she would meet him soon. So he decided to send her an email reply. Except there was one small problem. He typed just one letter wrong in the email address. And so instead of reaching his wife, it came to an old woman here in Oklahoma whose minister husband had just died. Here's what she read. Dearest, well, the journey is over and I've finally arrived. I was surprised to find that they have email here now. They tell me you will be coming soon. It will be good to be together again. Love as always. P.S. Be prepared. It's quite hot down here. So let's just say it's important to take with a grain of salt what we are reading in our emails, on the internet, social media, what we are seeing on television. Now, of course, it's natural to feel fear and anxiety, even frustration and anger when things are changing so quickly, and especially when they're changing in ways that we don't like and that concern us. So I've been exploring the question, because there's always stuff changing. There's always things happening that we don't like, either in the world or in our own personal lives. So I've been asking the question, how do we stay centered and stay calm and wise in such circumstances? Now, Jack Kornfield says not giving in to the fear is an act of resistance. It's a revolutionary act in times like these. So the question is, how can you and I find ways to stay calm so that we're not just part of the problem, but we're some of the folks who can help create a solution to what's happening? I think of that analogy of a movie theater. You know, when there's a fire in a movie theater, if everybody panics, people are going to get hurt. Everybody's running around. People are going to get trampled or bumped into, run over, maybe, burned up. So it just takes one person in that situation, or a couple of people, to stay calm and centered to get everybody out alive. So why shouldn't we be in the midst of all this among those people who are doing that? But how? And that's the question that I've been asking myself, because when we panic, we're not a help to anybody. If we're all caught up in the maelstrom of life, how are we going to help? I'm reminded of a story. I haven't thought of this in a long time, but it was like 25 years ago, before we were married. My wife and I lived in Somerville, Massachusetts, and we lived in this little apartment, and we had this sort of kitchen nook where we'd eat, and we were eating dinner one night, and it was late summer. We had the window open, a kind of screen right next to the window, and a little breeze coming in, and we started to hear an airplane coming. It seemed like it was coming really close, and it was getting louder and louder, to the point where it was getting so loud that we were convinced it was going to fly right into our house. I mean, it was deafening. So we started to run, and we were running towards our bedroom, which was like away from the window, to jump under the bed. I don't know how you survive an airplane crashing into your house, but we were convinced it was coming. And now, when my wife tells this story, she says that when we got to the door of the bedroom, I pushed her away so I could get in first. Now, I've been resisting that story for a long time now, and I'm not sure. It's not how I remember how it happened, but what I do know is we were panicked. I mean, it was fight or flight. We were sure an airplane was about to crash into our house, and so maybe I did. I finally today, 25 years later, I admitted in the earlier service, I'm going to admit to you, maybe I did. I could have. It was within the realm of possibility because I was acting from that reptilian part of our brain, the oldest part of our brain, where it's like, this is about survival. Nothing else mattered. I'm reminded of the story of the two hikers who all of a sudden come upon a bear, and the one says, we got to run. And the one says, you think you can outrun a bear? And he says, I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you. So I think my wife felt a little bit like that back when all that happened. But my point being that panic doesn't help us in those situations or any situation. And I know that firefighters, they do drills so that they can prepare themselves because they know it's very likely that they're going to be in a situation that if left up to their reptilian brain or their evolutionary brain, they would panic and freak out. So they kind of try to simulate these things so that when they're in that situation, they can stay calm and hopefully save their lives and maybe some other lives at the same time. So how can we begin to do that? How can we move out of that part of our brain into the frontal lobe, into other parts so that we can be, in these crazy times that we're living in, a source of strength and wisdom? Because we have to keep our heads on straight. Otherwise, we're just another part of the problem. Now, I don't mean that we need to prepare for airplanes crashing into our house or a fire in a movie theater. I just mean in the midst of our everyday unravelings of our democracy, of our personal lives, whatever it might be. Because if we're living in a perpetual state of anxiety, a perpetual state of fear, then we're just being manipulated by all kinds of forces and all kinds of people, whether it's advertisers or politicians or religious leaders or any of it. So be careful and keep your wits about you everywhere. So I think we can be part of the solution. And I think that I was really touched by Barbara's message last Sunday where she was talking about gratitude. I don't know if you were here, but there was so much positive energy as we were thanking each other, and there was this sense of gratitude. And she said one of the things we need to do is, and this is what hit me, is in the midst of whatever's going on in our life, we have to find a way to be grateful. And it just struck me because, I'm back, I'm trying to reconnect, and I'm coming back to work after 3 months away, and, there's all the craziness, weeds growing in my garden, all the stuff that I have to take care of with the house and the bills, after 3 months of kind of being away, and I realized, and I was just going through some stuff, and I realized, I need to be thankful now. I can't wait till later to be thankful. It's not about waiting until I'm not going through stuff, because we're always going through stuff. I know you're going through stuff. If you wait till you're everything's going great in your life to be grateful, then it's going to be a long time. Because if you have children, you're going through stuff. I know that. If you don't have children, you're going through stuff. If you're in a relationship, you're going through stuff. If you're not in a relationship, I know you're going through stuff. If you're not independently wealthy right now, you're going through some stuff. If you are independently wealthy, you're probably going through some stuff. We're always, and that's the point of the story, is that there's always parts of our lives that are going well and parts of our lives that are coming apart at the seams. It could be your marriage. It could be with your children. It could be with your work. It could be with your house. It could be with whatever. We all have parts of ourselves that are fraying at the edges. And so the question is not, how do I avoid that or pretend that's not real or pretend that's not happening, but how do I find some way to be grateful and be grounded in the midst of whatever's happening? Because that's what real life is. There are a lot of people who are, following conspiracy theories in order to avoid the reality of the world. There's a lot of people following religious beliefs as a way to avoid the reality of the world. But our role, if we want to be healthy and grounded in what's real, is for us to be present, be mindful, and recognize there's ups, there's downs, and find a way to stay somehow balanced in the midst of it all. The first 11 days of my sabbatical time, I went to Colorado. And in Colorado, I purposely, a friend of mine had a place where I could stay. There was nobody around. And I purposely set it up so I'd have no distractions, no television, no internet, no people around, so that I just really had to just pay attention to what was going on with me. And when people hear that, they go, "Oh, that sounds so great, Marlin. That sounds so peaceful." I kind of thought it would be too, but it was a lot sort of more intense and difficult than I ever imagined. Because, I don't know what's going on in your head, but what I found out was going on in my head, it wasn't all just simple and easy and uncomplicated. So one of the things that I noticed right away was that one day I started to feel real anxious. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, it was very uncomfortable. It's not a feeling I'm particularly familiar with. I certainly don't sit with it when it comes. I find some way to distract myself. And I'm like, I'm in this place. I got food. I got a roof over my head. I have nothing to do. I don't have no work to worry about. Why am I feeling this anxiety? But I just committed to sitting with it, not going to grab a beer out of the fridge or going to try to call someone or watch a YouTube video of some late night comedian or something like that. I just was like, I'm going to sit with this, and I did. And another day, I woke up. I had happy days and calm days and fun days. I was writing and hiking. But then I'd have this other day, I woke up and I felt really depressed. I was like, wow, this is interesting. And I sat with that, as bad as it felt, and as much as I wanted to run away from it. And I just said, wow, I feel like crap. But then about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I noticed, oh, wow, look at that. It's lifted. Isn't that interesting? I feel good. I felt great. I went out and took a walk, and I was feeling much better. And I said, isn't that fascinating? And then another time, I woke up feeling angry. I was angry, and I had some anger just came up, and I was working through it. And the thing is, you have to understand, I didn't know I was so moody. I don't think of myself that way. I think of myself as very even-keeled, and I think I present myself that way in the world. And so I just had not stopped long enough or often enough to really figure it out, because that's what I do. I know when I came home from church last Sunday, because I stayed till about 6 o'clock. I was like on cloud 9 after the services, and then I had some meetings. We reconnected with some of the staff and some of our members, and I was feeling really good. But then as I was driving home, I realized, God, I feel some sadness, some grief or something. Where's that coming from? And then I had a theory of where it was coming. I'm like, it's probably, whatever. I'm not going to go into that. But I thought I knew why. So when I went home, I know what I would have done before. I would have gotten home. It's like 6 o'clock. I'm like, I'm going to grab a beer out of the fridge, have a beer, a glass of wine, talk to my wife. We'll make some dinner together. And that feeling that I was having would just kind of dissipate. I'd forget about it. But this time I said, no, I'm going to go sit and meditate. That's what I was doing in Colorado. I meditated 3 times a day for up to half an hour each time. I was really, really trying to stay present. And so I meditated. And what was fascinating to me was as I sat there meditating, and as the thoughts kind of pop up and you try to let them go, it wasn't at all the thing that I thought I was grieving about. It was something completely different. It was a little conversation I had with one person that brought up a relationship that is, complicated for me. And and that was bothering me. It was just there in the back recesses of my subconscious. But when I sat and meditated and realized, oh, that's what it is, I kind of was able to start, thinking about that a little bit and letting it go, and I moved on. And then I was with my family, and I enjoyed our time together, our evening together, and it wasn't just this thing haunting me. I probably would have woken up in the middle of the night and then realized it and had trouble sleeping or whatever. So I just realized being present and being mindful, figuring out what's going on. So I've made this commitment to be present, more mindful this year. And what I want to do is I want to invite you to join me if you're so inclined, because I think that's at least the very first step of us being able to resist the urge to just panic with everybody else and just be part of the whirlwind of what's going on all over in the world. So I'm inviting you to join me. And what this is about, what I'm talking about is splitting your attention. So it's about doing whatever you're doing, watching whatever you're watching, but also paying attention to how you're feeling as it's happening. And so you're kind of like, oh yeah, I'm watching this. I'm watching my neighbor mowing their beautiful lawn across the street, and wow, I'm noticing some jealousy coming up, or I'm noticing that I'm frustrated by that person, or whatever, or envious, or who knows what, or I'm watching my child do this, and I'm noticing something's going on. Maybe I'm being reminded of something when I was a child, but split attention. Doing what you're doing, being present in the moment, but also being aware of what sensations are coming up for you while that's happening. So that's kind of the idea, because I'm really committed to being more intentional and more skillful about how I'm showing up. And I think it's something that we can all do together. So when I'm eating, I'm going to be eating as much as possible, paying attention. I mean, some of the food I get to eat, some of the fruits and some of the beautiful tastes and lovely textures of food and drinks and all that kind of stuff. I just want to enjoy it and take a moment. So I'm not just like shoveling food into my face. I'm the fastest eater in the world, or I have been. Just to take some time and eat and enjoy and chew and be like, wow, look at this. I got this organic this, and where did it come from? It came from this other land, and these people harvested this and grew this, and now I'm eating this, and what a joy, and I'm connected to them, and the whole earth. It took the sun to grow this, and the earth to, and the water and the rain, and how it's all connected. And so that attention, when I'm walking, I want to walk. When I'm mad and when I'm sad and when I'm feeling bad, I want to be able to just watch it, see how it goes. When I was in Colorado, there was this big mountain that kind of right beyond the property, and I would sit there and watch it, and the night would come, the sun would come, the rain would come, the clouds would come. I'm sure in some seasons the snow comes, but the mountain just sits there, and doesn't do anything. Doesn't seem to be judging it. Doesn't seem to be bothered by it. It's just like, oh, okay, that's what's coming, and it's going to go, and something new is going to come, and it's going to go. And I think that's really the practice that we need to be in, and what I'm trying to be in. So I'm probably going to try to teach some meditation classes this year. I hope you might consider that if you don't do that, or even if you do. And I'd love to learn from you about what practices you use to stay present. Because I think when we're brushing our teeth, we can just be like, oh yeah, okay, what's going on? I can just kind of check in with what's going on in my body. When we wake up first thing in the morning, one of the things I'm trying to do too is if I go through a door, a threshold or something, I'm like, okay, I'm going into a new meeting. Let me stop for a second. How am I feeling? How am I doing? And then walk into the new meeting. Those are the kinds of things. And I think that what I've realized already from being back here is, for 1 week, is that being around so many people who are open-minded, who are positive, who are striving, who want to make the world a better place, who want to make a difference, that it's like an antidote to the sort of poisonous, toxic kind of stuff that's going on in the world. And so I just love being around people. We have this collective consciousness of love and care in this place, in this community. And so I want us to continue to build that and continue to be present. Let me tell you what happened with the airplane, because I remember after the last service, we were like, what was the deal with that airplane? So what happened was the Boston Red Sox were in the playoffs, and the Air Force did a flyover, but for some reason they were much lower in the airspace than they were supposed to be, and so car alarms were going off. I think some windows broke, and the Air Force was actually fined for doing it. But that was why it sounded, and people all over were panicking and running, and so it was a crazy time. So in the midst of our crazy times, so that we don't push each other out of the way to get, under the bed or whatever, our metaphorical bed. That's right. Charity begins at home. No, that story, that affects my sense of manhood and everything. You can imagine, like, in the moment of crisis, what did I do? Push my wife out of the way. Like, here, put her in front, the arrow's coming, like, hey, Anyway, that's not who I want to be in the world. I don't think I was, but if I was, I don't want to do that again. So let us pay attention. Let us be aware, what is our color? What is our thread? So that we can begin to weave and reweave our democracy, our society, our personal lives, our marriages, our relationship with our kids, our relationship with one another, our relationship with ourselves. I think it's going to be a beautiful year. I think it's going to be a significant year in the life of this congregation and in my life, and I believe in your life too, if you choose to make it so. It's an ice cream truck coming. See? That's a happy sound, the ice cream truck. It's great to be back. I love you. Thank you. Thank you.